one of the movies that gained a lot of spotlight. I mean, the movie is Spotlight, and this sort of threw the entire scandal into limelight about how the church, in fact, the Vatican was actively involved in covering up sexual abuses by priests across America and, in fact, the world. In Kerala, we are seeing a lot of similar patterns emerge. Now, is there a history of sexual abuse in India and in South India especially? And is there a pattern to all of this?
Mm. So, I'm glad you mentioned the movie Spotlight, because it actually comes from a real life case of the Catholic Church, which was, I think, in early 2000s. And that was really well dramatized in this movie. And the priest at that church was accused of shockingly raping, molesting hundreds of children over many decades. And it was one of the cases that brought this entire abuse that is happening in churches to light. But I have to say, when you ask about is there a trend, I have to say the trend is similar across the world. Now what happens is, as it is when you study cases of child sexual abuse, you realize that grooming is a very big part of it. You groom children, just the way in love jihad. Love jihad in many countries is considered called love grooming or something like that. It's called grooming, basically, that there is an extended period of time you have access to the child, and over a period of time you groom that child to completely be incapable of protesting to what that child is going through. Now, what happens with church-like institutions is, number one, there is an ability to groom because you are in constant touch with the child. They're at choir practice, or they are at Sunday school, whatnot. There are all sorts of other activities also that the churches organize. And that is one of the main reasons that this is fairly common. But having said that, the other reason is the religious sanctioned authority. Now, who are you going to complain against? Somebody that you think is, is an authority, and that also a religious authority that comes with a certain amount of moral credit. Number three is the church turning a blind eye, because obviously, accusations like this towards a religious organization is not very easy to digest and has a lot on stake. But so the ability to groom religious authority and the senior authorities turning a blind eye, all these points come together and make it a very conducive environment for situations like this to happen. Who are these kids going to complain to? And in India, moreover, so a lot of these children are from the poorer communities. Who is going to believe them? As it is a child. And these predators spend weeks and months, even they spend money and energy and all sorts of tactics they employ just to groom these children, so that they can finally violate them. We also don't realize, we don't talk about these things openly. We don't like to accept that such ideas of religion can have something so dark going on, because we feel that all these cases only either happen by random strangers, or cases like this happen if the person themselves is provocative. But you don't realize that majority of rapes happen, majority of sexual abuse happens from the immediate community that is involved. So we don't have this understanding. in India, we don't talk about these things openly. We don't try to understand them in a deeper way. There is a taboo attached to them. So, of course, it's a free hand for religious institutions and leaderships who can cultivate children like this. And in the garb of being caregivers and moral guides. Now, because of a religious institution standing, because of the frequent rate of this sort of grooming that takes place, um, it was at one point really, really difficult for the church to actually accept, the Vatican to actually accept that this was happening. And, we probably only get to know the tip of the iceberg. The Vatican probably had far more information than we did. But because of the attached pride, and because of the reputation of the religious institution, a lot of this is hushed up. It was hushed up for a long time. It was denied bluntly for a long time. But eventually this pattern was not just noticed in America or Europe, but also in India and Canada and United States and every other country where every other country where there were these kind of denominations that could attract a lot of young children. Having said that, the cover-up is something that obviously affects all church institutions. And one of the saddest things that the church had done is the preachers, the priests that were accused of molestation, instead of bringing them to the book, they reinstated them, they relocated them. And that itself had a huge impact on, it had a huge impact on the Catholic community, because whatever said and done, there is an amount of trust that you give these religious institutions.
Right.
And when priests have been accused and it has come out to be true of this sort of these sort of actions, instead of taking action against them and standing up for what would be morally correct, you turn around and relocate them and allow them to possibly do this with other children. So this split the Catholic society in two. And in India as well, it's no different. Like I said, this is a pattern that we've seen all over the world. So I don't think in India the pattern changes. But we in India have to deal with far more difficult societal limitations to be able to speak about this, because the skepticism, the denial, not just by the people being accused, but also by the child's family is so evident. The first thing that comes into our mind is that, the shame of it all. If we go out and complain, what will the society say?
There is a stigma, yes.
There is the stigma attached to it. And other members of the same church might become suspicious, saying, stay away from this child, or stay away from this accuser, because they might accuse. There's this sort of distrust as well, because it's just in India, faith is so strong. And I believe that comes from the fact that, we are a little bit of a broken society. We are a little bit, we are vulnerable in terms of poverty, in terms of suffering, in terms of grief, that we go into this sort of, defense mode, where we feel that, no, these are messengers of God, or these are people who are carrying God's word. They cannot do anything wrong. And let me tell you, Sharon, in some cases, it's not just about the child being groomed. It's not just about that. It's about the whole society that may be groomed. So, for example, one of these sociologists who had done a very extensive study on grooming in church and actually figured out some patterns, also noted that in Ireland in the 1990s, the whole nation exhibited like a culture of disbelief towards abuse claims. And this was after widespread revelations. And it came to the conclusion that members of these faiths have more faith and loyalty to the institution than towards a victim. It was also found that in places like Nigeria, where it was the Pentecostal pastors, they groomed children and sexually abused them. They sexually abused them under the pretext of that we'll remove the demons out of you. The demonic suffering that you're undergoing will be something, if you do this, will dissipate and you will get relief. Now, this is again similar to India.
Yes.
Why do we think it doesn't happen in India? We are such great believers in the cult, in miracles, in like we discussed earlier, in otherworldly sort of experiences. That why do we think that our people will not trust these people when they say things like this? And also, these organizations sometimes can work almost like the mafias. So maybe if somebody tries to, even if a victim tries to complain, there might be an institutional block against them. They might not get admissions in the missionary schools that they're studying in. They might not get the benefits that they get. Even police stations, which of these children or these children's parents, there'll be far and few who will want to make the effort of going up to a police station. And a lot of these abuses, again, which is similar in India and it's been similar around, were not necessarily, cross-gender. It was a male pastor sexually abusing a young boy. Right. Now, there is additional stigma attached to it in India. So, all I'm trying to say is that this happens. There is a pattern to it. These patterns have been, they've been discussed. We've been able to reveal these patterns. But when we feel that the impact in a country is low, we must understand at times in countries like ours, developing countries, that a lot of times the victim does not have the space to actually bring these stories out.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.